The More Movement Crew.
Welcome to the More Movement Crew podcast. I'm your host, Kenina Porter, and we have a special guest here with us today. But I'm so excited because this is our second episode, and it's my birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Kenina.
So welcome, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. It's my birthday, so I'm really, really excited about that. But first, I want to quickly talk about, give you kind of a summary of what we talked about last episode. I introduced myself and I introduced what the More Movement Crew is, but we're just a community of people who want to live extraordinary lives, right? We are doing out of the box things and we're kind of making strides and really creating change and impact. So I'm excited because we have a special guest today. Ray Martin's here with us today. She's a dear friend of mine, and she's also a part of the More Movement Crew. So I'm excited for her to come and to share her story and to share a little bit about who she is. So I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself, introduce what she does, and what makes her so awesome.
Hi, I'm Ray Martin. Thank you again for having me here. So in terms of what I do, I consider myself an educator. I work for a nonprofit organization working with young adults who are trying to get their GEDs or high school diplomas. I also work with the local school board here in Louisville, Kentucky, for the adult education program. So a lot of the same things that I do in those different spaces, just with a different demographic. I'm definitely would consider myself an education advocate, and I'm working on setting myself up as an education consultant. I'm a tax preparer. That's something that I do seasonally or in my spare time. And right now I'm a student. So I'm working on my MBA at the University of Louisville. And in the future, I hope to also become a Metro Council member. So
So we're going to talk a little bit more about
yes,
all of those endeavors. But before we start talking about that, we are going to play a game called 5 Questions.
I love games.
5 questions. And it is basically just 5 questions, getting to know each guest and to give them the tea on who you are and what you're interested in, what moves you. All right, so you ready for the first question?
I'm ready.
All right, first question is, what is the most interesting place you've traveled to?
Okay, that's a really good question for me right now because it's been a lit summer. I was really fortunate to see a lot of the world this summer. So I went to first Argentina with my MBA program that I talked about. We have this global business class. So we took an excursion we went as a cohort of other students. We went to South America and went to Argentina first and to Brazil. Argentina was okay, very European. It wasn't the, I guess, Hispanic influence that I was expecting, or like the Latin influence. It was just very European. There were no black people in Argentina, so that was interesting.
Wow.
But kind of, there were moments where it was uncomfortable because literally, like, there were no black people at all. And so it was noticeable, and people really stared at me, and I was very cognitive of my complexion the whole time that I was there. But it was interesting. But Brazil was beautiful. It was popping. It was black. The food was amazing. The music was it was just a tremendous experience. And then after Brazil, I went to Peru. One of my friends met me in Peru, and we did Machu Picchu, which was just a really rewarding experience. I was really proud of myself for climbing Machu Picchu because the thing about Peru is the elevation is really high there. So immediately when you get off the plane, you can feel the difference in the air. It's like, am I not breathing?
So it's like Colorado times
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'd imagine. I've never actually been to Colorado, but I'm like, yes. But I hear that people experience that elevation, that altitude sickness. And so the moment we got off the plane in Peru, we experienced that. My friend got really sick, but we both had to lay down, drink some tea, and just sort of sit still for the first couple hours that we were there. So that made the physical challenges of tackling Machu Picchu even harder.
Yeah.
But I was really proud of myself that I accomplished it and climbed up all those hills and all of those stone walls. So Peru would be the most interesting, I think, out of everything that I did this summer. while I was there, I met this real cute old woman who she said she was 70 and she was doing Machu Picchu and she had her walking cane, and just like watching her tackle these mountains was really inspirational, because here I was like doubting myself, like every step I'm like, I'm not gonna go no further. Like, I'm gonna just pass out right here. Like, I'll just wait for you guys. And the group that we were with was really like pushed me to keep going. So yeah, I was really proud, and I'd say Peru is the most interesting because it's beautiful, and it's a really like hospitable culture in a way that I had not experienced before.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. The 70-year-old, I'm sure, like, she was like this is my like my environment. Like, I'm used to doing this. I've probably been doing
Honey,
she's probably been doing that for like
used to it, but
years, like climbing up those hills.
yeah.
So
She was amazing and really an inspiration. I think like everybody who's seen her, it was kind of like a gut check. Like, oh, like, let me stop complaining. Right? Let me act like I'm not out of breath. But yeah, Peru was really interesting.
that's awesome. Awesome. So it seems like you traveled a lot this summer.
Yeah.
And just experienced different things. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting though how Argentina, like, so it was really not a lot
racist.
of people of just
Yeah, like before we beat around the bush,
right.
it was
I was
very
like,
racist culture.
was it just a complexion? Like, were you the most chocolate?
Yes.
Were there any variations of brown?
No, like none. And some of
Wow.
the guys who went on the trip with the program, one of them was from Saudi Arabia, the other one was from India, and we really connected because of that like shared experience. And like we both felt it. We all felt it. Like everywhere we went. When we were walking together, it was like
People were
you
staring?
could feel people like staring at us, and like when we got on the subway, like they would kind of like move away from us, and it was really kind of funny because one of them is of like a noble class at home, so like him being
Treated like that, wow.
you know, like he's less than.
Wow.
It was there were some moments that he was just like the nerve of them. Like,
Do you
if
know
they
who I
knew.
am? Right.
Right. A lot of those if you knew who I am moments, and I was just like, y'all know who he is.
Right.
But yeah, it was an interesting experience. Just a very racist culture. There were places we went to eat. And there was one time I thought this older man was gonna like spit on me. He was just so appalled. But then later the server came and said, he did like speak to me first and kind of address like the discomfort that he knew I had to be feeling. He was like, it's honestly not just because you're black. He's like, it's because you guys are tourists. So we were in a part of town that I guess just tourists didn't genuinely go to. But so
That's interesting that their perspective on tourism or tourists would be like that, because you think that tourism like brings money into your
and they need
city.
it.
Right. So you would just that's really interesting. So
but traveling really like it was more of a cultural experience in terms of like how I felt about my own identity, I guess, than I was expecting, like especially being in France. So right after Peru, I came home for a couple of days and then I went to France with work. We took a few of the young people that we work with over to France to do an internship in one of the King's Gardens. And so that was like a completely different experience as you know, a person of color, as a black person, because there they have all these beautiful Africans. And so and watching how like this race of people who, I mean, they come from all over different parts of Africa, of course, but just seeing how they carried themselves with like just a whole different swag and esteem than I feel like African Americans do. It was just really rewarding, like watching them just be.
it was also, I feel like there's like a refined like vibe when it comes to like African men. Like, I've been to Europe for real. Like I was probably like a 3 when I was in Europe last, but I feel like that's the impression that I get.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
They always like dress
nice tight suits, real
tailored.
fitted. Yes.
So I think that's pretty cool.
I may go back and find my husband. For real.
I'm all about the accents though. Like me and accents. Like when I went to Jamaica, I just love hearing them speak. Like it's just accents for me.
The thing about France, because of all of the different African countries that are represented there was just like such a huge variety of accents, and you could like pick up on the differences in them. So yeah, accents everywhere. Nice, like I said, nice fitted suits, lots of chocolatey, well-dressed, well-educated men. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
We always start off the conversation about something else, and then we always end up talking about
Nice chocolatey men.
nice chocolate.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just a sidebar. But this is you get an experience about like what it's like to like be hanging out with us and have a conversation. So I feel like it's organic that way. So let's go to the second question.
Okay.
The second question is, what gets you out of bed every day? So this one's kind of deep.
Yeah. I think I just like to do, like really. There's just so much to do and so much to experience. I'm just like ready to get out of the bed every day and see what's next. I got a lot to accomplish. I got a lot on my plate, and there's just work to do.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are people who are really dependent on me, I feel like, especially in terms of like my professional career, like what I do for work, there are young people who are like waiting on me to walk through the door to help them, and I want to be there for them. I want to be there for my community, for my family, just the drive to experience and live life. And now that I've like gotten a little taste of this travel bug, now it's like everything that I do comes back to like, how can I use this to
travel more.
To travel more, right?
Yeah. That's pretty dope. Like the traveling, I feel like opens up a whole new world.
Absolutely.
And it just it takes you, I mean, for me, it helps me to recognize like there are parts of my life that I appreciate. There are things that I take for granted living here. And then there's another part of me that's like, man, like they appreciate the simple things, whereas in America, we're moving, we're hustling, we're trying to get money, we're going after fame and popularity and stuff like that. And so a lot of times in other countries, that's not important. Like family is important.
It's important.
Like, relationships, children, all those things are important. So
not to keep us from the next question, but when you said that, it reminds me of, when I was in Brazil, everybody talks about like the lost kids of Brazil. So these kids who are just seemingly like homeless, and they kind of just like wander the street, the orphans of Brazil, and they always talk about like how sad it is, and just like, oh, these poor kids. And when I seen these kids, right, they were so happy. You know what I mean? I'm sure they have things that they need, and they're not always happy, but it was just like watching them kind of run around with this like freedom and with their kind of smeared faces and just seeing like that carefreeness, and like they didn't have the things that we think it takes to be happy. It was just really like a reminder of the simple things, like you said, to be grateful for the things that we do have in life and space and the ability to run and play and just breathe.
I think it's just eye-opening for that. And just to get out of like the environment that you're in. I think so many people just don't, like, you wouldn't believe, like you would believe, because of, who we serve a lot of times, but just haven't traveled outside of the country or the state.
Or outside of the state, That's one of the things that I want to do more of, is try to like create or help young people find the opportunities to travel, because I feel like it's just important.
It's life-changing.
Yeah, it really
is. Okay. All right. So question number 2. Okay. That was question number 2. So now question number 3.
Cool.
What color represents you?
I'd say black. Right? Black is, first, it's adaptable. So it goes with everything, which I like to feel like I am adaptable. It's classy. It's, it's sophisticated. It's slimming. A lot of different reasons. Kind of mysterious. So yeah, I would say black.
Black. I would have never guessed black.
Yeah, why?
I would have guessed like
something annoying.
Something
like bright.
Like super bright, like orange.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
no, definitely black. For the season, I'm all about blush, this like blush color. Because it's kind of like feminine and I don't know, still like subtle, but black is definitely like the color that I feel like defines me as a whole.
So it's like whatever color and black.
Yeah. Yeah.
That works. Okay. Question number 4. Name 3 songs that are in your playlist. Well, actually, let's name 3 artists. Because 3 songs is like kind of hard.
Yeah, because Spotify
like,
does the work for us.
Let you have it all. So 3 artists.
Yeah. So I am a really eclectic person in my musical taste and just taste in general. Who are the top 3 artists on my Spotify? Right now, probably that Lizzo and that Truth Hurt song that I just took a DNA test. Like, I love that Lizzo.
Yeah.
She's gonna make it a good cuffing season for the big girls.
Oh gosh.
Like, I
You're
love it.
killing it.
I love the body like positivity and all like the energy around her.
Yeah.
And aside from that song, like I said, Spotify does the work. The other things that I've heard are really good. There's some Kevin Gates in there. I don't know. Do you know anything about Kevin Gates?
A little bit.
So some Kevin Gates. If I had to think of a song, Perfect Imperfection is like one of my favorite
Really?
Kevin Gates songs. Yeah, it's just about, I mean, even in the title alone, like we're perfectly imperfect.
Imperfect. Yes.
Yeah, so.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Would have never guessed that.
Yeah, that's for my, the other sides. I'm adaptable. Who else? Probably, Aria Lennox. Have you heard of her?
Yes.
Shea Butter Baby?
Shea Butter, yeah.
Oh man, she kills it. I love it.
Yeah, I saw her perform when we were in Philly. She was on the lineup for the Roots Picnic.
Okay.
And she was really good.
Cool. Oh, I think now that I say it, isn't she coming with, her and Lizzo are supposed to be coming to Louisville. I feel like they're coming together.
I know Lizzo's coming.
Yeah, I might have made that up, but let's manifest it. That she's going to be
there. Making up concerts, making up shows. But Lizzo is coming though.
Okay.
But you know who? Okay, this is like changing.
Who's in yours? Yeah, who's your top?
Who's my top three? That's hard. The Roots stays in my playlist. Like I absolutely love The Roots. Or Black Thought, either one. Like he's got albums out. I have been on this African vibe. So like Mr. Easy is an artist that I like. Davido is an artist that I like. They play his song on the radio, and I'm not gonna sing it because I don't really know it for real.
Is there a dance that goes with it?
No, but I just make mine up.
Okay.
So I'm really into like African beats and sounds.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think like, I don't know, like Jamaica put me in like that reggae African vibe, and so like I don't want to leave that right now. Right. So between the Roots and African, her is always a quick go-to. Her is phenomenal. Yeah. Or they're like artists like Summer Walker. She's really, really good.
I've heard one song of hers.
Yeah, Girls Need Love with Drake. Yeah, that's the song everybody
I didn't realize how dope Hair was until the to the BET Awards this year. Did you watch it? Yeah, she was really like, I was like taken aback. I didn't realize how much of an artist that she was. So
she's been doing it. Like I didn't realize it, but she's literally been doing this since she was like, I don't know, a child, like 10 or something.
Yeah,
so
it shows she's very talented.
She's like I feel like an old soul though. Like she's like all about the music. That's why she says she wears like the glasses because she's just like, I'm all about the music.
She didn't want to take away from her music with her like physical appearance.
So those are three artists. Even though I wasn't supposed to be answering questions.
I'm sorry. So these are for me to answer.
But I could give you literally like 40 artists because like music is like my favorite. My favorite. Okay, next question. Or last question. What is the best advice you were given?
Girl, my mama calls me every morning with fresh advice.
Hi, Mom.
I have so much. Hey, Mama. Valencia Martin out there. If she can navigate her way to YouTube for one.
Oh, no.
Like, that would be amazing.
She will just for this. Watch.
Just for this, she will. That's mama's love. But yeah, she calls me daily with good sound advice. But what's the best advice? I think when I was younger, I used to do some volunteer work for the libraries. So there was this library that was called Bon Air. It was out across town from where I lived. I grew up in the West End of Louisville, and it was just on the opposite side of town. And so I used to go there and help with like different camp activities. And at the time it was about like socializing because one of my friends lived out that way. And so she could walk to Bon Air Library and I would just have my mom drop me off there to go volunteer. And then I remember one day we were at Shawnee Library, which is the library that's in the West End that's closest to my house. And she was like, why do you go all the way across town to volunteer? Like, why don't you ever volunteer here? And I don't know, I said something like smart aleck or, kids when we're young. But I remember she told me, like, you don't have to leave your neighborhood if you want to, like, make a difference. And, as a young person, I don't think, we don't know the weight of things when we're children. But I kind of reflect on that a lot as an adult. And it just it reminds me, like, you literally can make a difference, or help someone wherever you are, whether that's home, or even if you are in a space that's not your home, like, you don't have to go that far.
That imagine though if everyone took that perspective, right? Like everyone took ownership of that in their community and said, like, I can make an impact where I'm at,
right here.
Like, wow. Like, where would we be as a society? That's good stuff. Plus, that's really good advice. I think, to like just never forget where you come from. And I'm sure that's something you always take with you, like, wherever you go. So, all right. So that was 5 questions.
Okay.
And so now we're actually going to get into the actual topic of the show. Like we talked about the mission for the More Movement crew. It's just people out here just making big moves, right? People out here achieving dreams and goals. And ever since I've known Ray, she has been always on her grind, right? She would, as I've gotten to know her and gotten to know more about like who she is, she'd be always up to something different. She'd be like, yeah, I'm trying this, I'm doing this. Or I would say, hey, I'm going to try this weekend. I'm down, let's do it.
I'm always down.
So
like
the life of the party, like, for real. So I definitely thought that it was like necessary and definitely important to have you on the show, because what I really want my viewers to recognize and understand is that, like, the More Movement is really about people who just want to use every gift, every passion to really, really create change, and not just like to keep it and to just make money and attribute that to success, but to like use our talents and our skills to like really make an impact out here in the community. And it's people out here in everyday life that's doing that. And Ray is one of those people that I definitely wanted to come on the show so we could so she can share her experience, share her thought process, and where does she see herself. So after I've said all of that, let's just kind of talk about, since you've already kind of given us an idea of, what it is that you do, and kind of given us context around where that puts you in terms of your goals and your passion. What do you feel like drives you? I know a lot of times, like, that's the defining fact between someone who actually gets up and makes a move and actually takes action. Whereas a lot of people I'm finding talk about what's not working, what needs to change.
Absolutely.
Right? So what drives you to really push towards change?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of kind of what you just explained. I know, what's that quote? It's like, the problem is not the problem, but your reaction to the problem. So that's another like thing that's kind of like always been in the back of my mind is it's easy to complain, right? It's easy to identify problems, say that these are the things that are wrong with the world, these are the things that are wrong with my community, with my neighborhood, with myself, but it's something else to take action to change them. And so you're like, how you react, how I react to the problems is just very important to me. So I've always taken pride in just being like a problem solver, right? I just kind of like to dig in. I got a lot of questions to ask. I think maybe the fact that I just want to know so much. I guess I'm a sponge. Like, I just have this like thirst for knowledge, and I think that is probably what really drives me, is just this thirst for like knowing and understanding why things are the way they are or aren't.
It's funny how, like, remember how I always refer to that as like, if I like need you to help me think through some things, I'm just like, I need to borrow your beautiful brain. Like, I need that brain, because she's always like, wanting to know something. But the one thing that I always recognized about you is that, let's say we have a situation, we have a problem, like your immediate response is like, what? Like, did I do it just like you? I did it just like her.
That was pretty good.
I did it just like you. What? We gotta change this.
Outrage.
It's like hilarious. First comes the outrage. Then second comes the solution. Right. And so and so that is like really what always like make me feel like, because my personality is just like,
you're very chill. Which I've learned a lot from you in that way, and like keeping calm. I think when we first met, it was probably more of that like this is a problem, like this is terrible, we can't go on like this. And now I'm learning to just like relax And I think some of that's come with like getting older too, and like I said, and learning from you, and yeah, just kind of chilling and relaxing more. So same drive, like same this.
Yeah.
I want the same outcome,
Yeah.
but just realizing that every problem has a solution, and I can tackle those problems and find a solution without like driving everybody around me crazy.
Yeah.
Well, being all in your face, like this has got to happen. So yeah.
That's funny. I mean, I think that's helped us. I think just as like friends, our friendship is like if you're at a 10, and I'm usually 5 or 6.
Yes.
Right. So somehow we try to.
I'm gonna talk to your viewers here for a second. So Kanina's like chill used to bother me. Like I know she cared as much. Like when there would be something going on, and I would just be like so riled up. Like Kanina, what are we gonna do about this? Like what are we gonna do? And Kanina would just be like, we'll figure it out. Like it'll be okay. But she would just be like very calm, and her being calm would like drive me nuts. I'd be like, why aren't you upset? And she, so it's been we've both grown.
We've worked through that. But it's also important though when you're working with people to have people that are like super, super passionate, because for me it was like you can't always be in an unbothered state. I guess, just it's the world. Like sometimes you don't have the energy, like you always have like the energy to kind of push it forward. And I feel like that's part of like working as a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
To create change. I feel like every group has a person with a personality like mine and a personality like yours that help to push things, to drive things. So,
but we both get things done.
We do.
Get things done for our community.
We really do. And we're not playing. We're not lying on that.
We really do, yeah.
All right. So the next question, or what I kind of want to talk about is, so we talked about drive, we talked about like what gets you up every day, and we talked about what you do. Like, what do you feel ultimately is your purpose?
Yeah, to drive that change that I want to see, that just to really make a difference in the community. I've always considered myself like a public servant. I've always been in positions, just like since I was a kid, like I've always taken on roles and looked for opportunities to really make a change. I think a lot of my work has been centered around education and really making sure that people are connected or aware of like educational resources and just understand like the benefit of educating ourselves, right? Especially as like a Black community, education is really our best weapon, right? And one of the classes that I just took was a technology management class. And so we were talking about how by 2020, there won't be brick and mortar banks to walk into. And so everybody else, they kind of just kept moving. But for me, I was like, that's a gut check, because when you're used to working with like marginalized communities or people who are disconnected, and you see how many people in these communities don't have access to internet, right? Or don't have computers. Like, what does that say for them? So really just education is the larger picture, but using education as a weapon, right?
Yeah.
Just weaponizing our knowledge so that we can stay afloat, so we stay alive and, be our best selves. We got to educate ourselves on the digitization of the world. Another crazy statistics, I went to a digital inclusion presentation a few days ago, and they were saying that even like here in Louisville, by this time next year, 63% of a certain sector of jobs, don't let me lie, we're going to be digitized. So again, you think about a community who already has like limited resources and is already don't have jobs that pay living wages, like how much scarier.
It's going to be more of a disadvantage. They're going to be operating at more of a disadvantage.
Yeah, and it's
creating a larger gap.
Just widening that gap.
Yeah.
We got to educate ourselves on, food sustainability, like, gardening and just, in general, I feel like my purpose is to educate
and advocate for
educate and advocate. Absolutely.
I definitely feel that. I was talking to a group of young people actually today, and I always talk to them about advocating for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But a part of like that self-advocacy, that power that you were talking about, is to educate yourself.
Yeah.
And so, we always see like with young people, there's an immediate response to either not say anything about an injustice or to not speak up for yourself, or to feel like that you can't change anything.
Yeah.
But I always propose the question of digging deeper to figure out like what that policy is, and is that true, and what are they telling you, is that accurate, right? And so I think that like educating themselves, I always gave like this analogy. I will pick a student in the class and I'll say, what if you went to school and they said you can't wear red shirts? Like, red shirts are a violation and you'll be suspended if you wear red shirts. And they were just like,
that's crazy.
some were like, I just want to wear red shirts.
Yeah.
And then some were like, well, I'm going to wear my red shirt.
Right.
And I said, not one of you guys said, show me the policy where it says that we can't wear red shirts, and why do we have that policy?
Yeah. And the why.
Yeah.
Like, why is that policy
right
there?
And so it's a matter of educating themselves and figuring out if what you're being told is actually the truth, and digging deeper. So I think that just as a community as a whole, like, education is definitely a powerful tool. And I feel like once we recognize that, like, as a people, as a community, then we'll be better off. Like, think about, I just wrote a book in February, and I just think it's very interesting. I had great support from friends and family, but like the folks that like actually like read the book, people tend to not want to read.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, that's the truth. I mean,
and it's just like, I want to support you. I want to support you, but
I haven't cracked the page on that book yet. Yeah. When you talk about purpose, though, a part of your book that reminds me of, and I think is really relevant, is you mentioned that all of the different gifts and all of the different like skills that we have, how eventually like one day they all come together to, put us in the place that we're supposed to be, that God wants us to be, so that we can live out our purpose.
Yeah.
And I think when I'm trying to answer the question or define what I think my purpose is, I think that's like always changing, because as I grow and as I put more tools in my belt, as my language, my vocabulary even, especially around like working on this master's in business, as my business acumen grows, right? I think that my purpose changes and evolves, and that one day, I will be, as you write, like in the position that I'm supposed to be, where I can utilize all those gifts. And I think that's when we know that we are in the place that we are meant to be, when it's like, I'm not just utilizing a piece of myself, not just one of my talents, but like all of the things that we do well. All of our superpowers, they all like come together for,
I like that.
one great thing. Well, you wrote it. Yeah. Oh, well, the superpowers.
That was
but
added.
you wrote the
I did write that. I did write
you
that.
wrote the book.
Make sure you get it.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
I definitely agree. I love how you kind of summarized how I explain purpose, but it's a powerful thing. I can't help but think of like the scripture that talks about all things working together for the good, but it's taking your skill set, it's taking your interests, it's taking your level of growth and evolution, and it's taking good and bad things, and all those things working together for a specific purpose. Because if I hadn't gotten sick, then I wouldn't be like this little lion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That like literally refuses to quit, because like now I built this tenacity, I built this resilience to like push. I wouldn't probably even be doing a podcast like if I didn't get sick. And so just like all of the things that you've overcome to get to where you are, like what are some things that you feel like you've overcome to get where you are?
Yeah. I won't dwell too much on that question, but I've made a lot of mistakes. You know what I mean? I'm here by the grace of God. There are times where there have been things that I should not have lived through. There have been times that, I don't know. I won't.
You're like, we're gonna say that for another day.
Too much on that. We'll save that for But I'm here by the grace of God, and because I had a amazing support system who pushed me and remind me that I don't have to be defined by the mistakes that I've made, and that I don't have to put myself in a box. Right? You can literally. When I was a kid, you know, that I Am Somebody poem. Did you ever have to do that?
No.
It was a poem. I wish I could remember the whole thing now, but the point of it was that I am somebody and I can be what I want to be, right? And I think that I probably believed it too much, right? Because I always have kind of felt like I am somebody, and I've always believed that no matter what I wanted to do, that there was a way to do it. And I just was very fortunate to have like I said, an amazing support system. And I think that makes all the difference, which knowing where I've come from is probably why it's important to me to be that support system for other young people. And we say young people, but not just young people, right? Because people grow at all ages and stages of life. So to just be that support system for the community that, you know, pushing that push, that force to remind you like, hey, you know, we can keep growing. I was watching this new Netflix show, and one of the things that they said, it was called, no, it wasn't Netflix, Amazon. It's called The Boys. But there was a quote in there, and he said, just because you fall on your butt doesn't mean you have to stay there. And so somebody who's fallen on my butt plenty of times and gotten up to the community who, you know, we constantly fall down. Like, we don't have to stay there. Like, we can always get up and keep pushing for better.
I definitely think, like, there's always there's a learning process. Like, you have to grow, you have to learn, and you have to make mistakes. And I know for me, there's always like that. And I think you and I have even talked about it, just like, slow down.
Yeah, that's probably really the best advice that I've ever been given, is to slow down.
Like,
I want to do everything right now. And
It's true. It's true. So that's really good advice, is to slow down, like, take the time to process it, take the time to rest, to practice self-care. Is also something super, super important. But just really taking the time to really think about what, like, your passion is, your purpose is. A lot of people don't really connect that. Like, there was a video with your favorite, Charlemagne.
Oh, God, I love Uncle Charlemagne. Shout out to Uncle Charlemagne.
And he says that, you know, now he realizes that he's, like, finally walking in his purpose as he is going and traveling and talking about mental health among the Black community, especially African American men. And it was refreshing to hear him use that. Like, I finally believe I'm walking in my purpose. Because a lot of people don't really know what their purpose is or, like, why they're here. So
did you read Black Privilege?
No, I didn't.
Charlemagne's book. So people think it's hilarious that I love him as much as I do. But one of the reasons that I am so drawn to him and to his type of leadership is that he's very honest about the mistakes that he made. And he's honest about just the mistakes that he's made. But those are the kind of leaders that I respect. People who can say, oh, like, even Malcolm X, who at one point of his life was all about segregating, you know, Black people segregating and removing ourselves and separate but equal, but then, like, later towards the end of his life realized that, yes, I can love Black people, right? But that doesn't mean that I have to, like, criminalize or demonize everybody who doesn't look like us. And so I'm just really drawn to leaders who are okay with saying, like, I made a mistake, right? Or I'm human, or I have grown, and just, like, being very transparent about their growth. And so,
I agree. Charlemagne has definitely like grown. I remember I used to always, like,
not to compare him to Malcolm X. That was probably too much. That was probably too much.
No, but, like, we get the idea. Like, we get where you were going with that. But you were just talking about, like, just growth as a whole. And I do feel like Charlemagne has definitely, like, grown. I mean, he's still him. You know, like, he's the stuff that, you know, he does that people still love. And I think that there's definitely a level of respect that I get, because he just says what people are thinking. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just asks the questions that people really want to know. So you can't really fault him for that, you know?
What I think is important about that, or, like, is just how much more effective those types of leaders are, and those type of educators are. So, like, even in a classroom setting, I try to, when we say, like, come to where people are, right? It's a lot easier to do that when you're honest about, hey, like, I've been there too. And I think that's one of the things that kind of draws me to the political world, right? I think when we elect leaders or people to represent us, we're like drawn to this this fictional, version of who people like claim to be. And I think that leaders are just more effective when they can just be their whole full selves and say honestly, like, hey, I've experienced what you're going through, or hey, I've made those mistakes too, and I just feel like they're just more effective and can really bring about change.
Transparency.
Yeah, transparency goes a long way.
Awesome. So we have talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We've
covered a lot of ground.
We've covered a lot of ground. But every guest that I have on the show always ends the show by answering one question. And I'll kind of give you a little context around the question itself. But the question is, when did you know that there was more? And so for some people, it's like a pivotal moment in their life where they knew there was more. Some, it's just a particular time in their life. Like, when did you have that time in your life where you said, okay, I don't want to just dream. I don't want to just think about ideas. I don't want to just talk about them. When did you say, okay, I'm really going to move towards a direction and start doing some of the things that I really know that I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah. I would say, I don't know, that is a heavy question, because I've always tried to push myself to do more, but I think I've always like made plans, right? And I've had visions and goals, and I've worked towards them in like smaller pieces or, individual goals. But I think really now, right? I don't know when that moment is, but I really feel like now is the time of my life where I'm like pursuing that more, where I'm like looking for the purpose that is going to utilize all of my skills, like all the different things that I'm interested in, where I can really make a change and be the influence on my community, on the world that I want to be, that I want to have. It's probably like a year ago, just to talk about like one of the projects that I feel like I was just kind of like slacking on, one of the things that I hadn't gotten around to doing. About a year ago, I was standing in Walmart and I was looking for a puzzle to bring to my youth group. And I like stood back on this like Walmart wall, and I didn't see any reflections of like Black culture. I was like, I don't want these puzzles, and it was that simple, but it just reminded me of how absent we are, like our presence is in a lot of spaces. And so at that time I had this thought, I was like, I should produce a Black puzzle, right? But I didn't do anything about it. It was a thought. It was just like something I had jotted down in a notebook, but I never took any action on it. But the way the world works, the way that God works, is things like keep coming up and there's like reminders. So particularly this project has come up in different ways, and just there have been like reminders. It's just like, hey, didn't you say you were going to do a puzzle line that was a reflection of Black culture? And maybe it was a birthday that was like the driving force. It was like, okay, we have to stop just making plans, and there's some reason that this plan keeps coming back to you, so let's like work on it. So not just with that plan, but I feel like everything that I have like kind of jotted down and said that I wanted to do, I'm like actively really working on it right now. And so hopefully a lot more positive, a lot more, right, will come of all these things.
That is a good way to end the show. I definitely think that I love how you said that now, you're realizing that. And I think that's perfect for our viewers. There may be viewers that are watching and they've had an idea, like you've had it in your head. You want to start that business. You want to start that nonprofit organization. You want to grow that community garden, whatever it is that you want to do, and you've been thinking about it and you haven't taken the steps to do it. So the time is now. Right now. There's no better time than the present. And so start to actually take those thoughts and those ideas, those things that you wrote down, and actually work to manifest those things. I did the same thing with this podcast. I have literally talked about it forever. And I was like, hey, it's time to actually do something about it. And so I really, really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you enjoyed listening to Ray's story and hearing us talk back and forth about how we connect and we work together. But most importantly, I hope that this has inspired you to pursue more and to join our More Movement crew. I ask that if you do want to join our crew, Definitely subscribe to this channel by pushing the button below. You can like our page on Facebook or follow us on Instagram. So thank you for tuning in. Definitely check us out next episode. We're going to have another special guest, and be blessed.